There's only 4 words. This one's for John. This one's for Pat.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to bring back somebody that has been on the channel before. We went through, I think, 11 interviews, and I went through and I handpicked the ones that I thought went best. And one of my favorite interviews from that series we did, and coming back on the channel, is Trav.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, always. And I didn't really have to think too hard about the way we were going to start this. There's obviously one thing that is on our minds right now, and we both know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the way Bo Nix has been playing in the preseason. So I'm going to just let you have the floor here for a minute, because I want to know how other Bronco fans are viewing Bo Nix, because I can talk to other football fans, I can talk to family members, but I don't really have any Bronco fans to reach out to. I'm pretty sure, because I'm in, DNVR and I'm involved in social media, that we're all on the same page. But to hear it from a real person face to face, like, what has Bo Nix's preseason meant to you as a Broncos fan?
Honestly, and I mean, it's high praise, but it's meant everything. It has been absolutely just so fresh and so needed for this franchise. I was actually just rewatching the preseason game with the Packers, and I just found myself smiling at like almost every single play. It didn't matter what the outcome was, if he passed it, if he handed it off. The team looks hungry. They look good. It seems like the offense is really coming into its own, especially under, Sean Payton. The defense, Vance Joseph, and all of his faults and his, tumultuous tenure here within Denver alone, they look like they're starting off on the right foot. And then to cap it all off, the icing on the cake, Bo Nix just playing his heart out. I mean, I find myself looking at it and then just comparing it to previous Denver quarterbacks that we've drafted throughout the years, or who we've rotated in to be our QB1, And one of the things that stood out to me was that every time a play goes down, every time, he's on the field processing, not only does he have the IQ, not only does he have the vision, but even when things don't go his way, and granted, it's the preseason, I don't expect phenomenal numbers this season from him, but as things progress, I'm looking at him and he's on the field real-time learning. There is no stagnation. There is no plateau. Like, he's still putting things together. We saw it in game 1 where he had the jitters. His feet weren't quite set the first couple of throws. And then after about, a minute or two, 3 or 4 plays in, he set his feet and he was good.
Yeah.
We're watching, I think it was this game with the Packers where, he'd made that mistake where he just crossed the line of scrimmage and then threw what would have been a touchdown pass to Javonte Williams, but then it got called back, obviously. And then I think it was like 2 or 3 plays later where he's like, yep, even though I'm running and I'm trying to scramble out and extend the play, which is something that we wanted to see from Russell Wilson, but he was very scramble happy. The complete antithesis of that is Bo Nix, where he has pocket presence. He's okay. He's comfortable in the pocket, but he also knows when he has to scramble. He knows what side to roll out to if he has to. And he just continues to extend the play. But even when he's extending the play, he's not looking to run. He's looking to pass first.
Yeah.
So I don't need to be worried about, the things that maybe others might get worried about when it came to, say, a Colin Kaepernick or RG3 or, even Lamar Jackson in the last couple of years. Like, those guys, they have the speed, they can put the burners on. Bo Nix isn't as fast, but because of what he knows where his strengths are, he can play to those. And as a Broncos fan, it is just beautiful to watch, and it's so refreshing. And I cannot say enough good things about what I am seeing overall from the team, but especially Bo Nix.
Yeah, and if you take away a lot to kind of, I'll give you my opinion on what I like about him. The first thing is his comfortability. Like the moment not being too big for him, like that's important. That matters. I mean, you get drafted. How often do first round quarterbacks hit? I mean, Sean Payton said it last year. He said maybe 1, 2. I mean, that's it. I mean, a lot of first round picks are, I don't want to say bust, but they're just not franchise guys. Like, it's very difficult to get one. And what are the odds that Denver got one with having the last selection in the first round, getting the 6th quarterback? Well, that's kind of how the world felt. So going into this game, it was like, okay, what do we know? We know that Sean Payton was involved with Bo Nix. What does that mean? Well, Sean Payton is very respected offensive mind, so that actually counts. But there was still a little part of people, including myself, that was like, but I need to see something. I need to see something. And I just didn't let myself get, my hopes too high going into that first game. Like you said, the first play is a little easy, but then it's 3rd and 9, and he makes an amazing throw to Cortland Sutton on the sideline. And I mean, we were just so used to 3rd down. Like, 3rd and long means the punter's cut. So, like, just the fact that he picked up that first down was like, oh my gosh, I could tell by how excited I was that hasn't happened a lot, because it was just a 3rd and 9 completion, and I was so happy. How comfortable Bo Nix is in the pocket, it matters. And there are quarterbacks that it seems like they just don't see the field well. They're just a tick behind the play, if that makes sense. Bo Nix seems to see the field really well and be on time with his decision making. His ball placement is very good. His short ball accuracy is really good, and you're starting to notice just the way he's turning his receivers, hitting the outside shoulder away from the linebacker. Like, you're seeing him make not just the right decisions, but actually executing the ball placement in perfect form. So I'm loving all that from Bo Nix. I'm with you. I like that even when he does run, he's looking to pass. He's keeping his eyes downfield. Another thing that I like from Bo Nix was that he's had 3-4 times where holding penalties or something has put Denver, behind the sticks in a 3rd and 19, 3rd and 20. And he's been able to pick up, let's say it's 2nd and 20. He just scrambles for 10 yards. All of a sudden, the holding penalty's a wash, and it's 3rd and manageable. Or not 3rd and manageable, but 3rd and 10. And then he picks up the first down. It's like, we never had the ability to overcome any kind of deficit. We had to keep everything in the most ideal position. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, anything more than that, the punter's probably coming out. But Bo Nix is showing that he has what it takes to not just be average, but overcome mistakes. And that's what you need out of your quarterback. You need somebody that can actually overcome some stuff out there. And he's scored on every single drive that he's gone out, besides one drive where Lucas Kroll fumbled the ball. Every time Bo Nix has gone out there as the Broncos starting quarterback, it's been 7 or 3. I find that just very, very impressive, right? Because we know how hard it's been to get. I mean, 2 years ago, we had 16.9 points per game. I mean, that's a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
But everybody keeps throwing out there, well, Bo Nix he's playing against backups. He's playing against backups. Well, this is what I kind of say to that is like, okay, fair enough. The coverage will be tighter. The receivers or the defenders will be faster. Sure, I get all that. But let's just ask ourselves this: is Bo Nix making the right decisions? Because what you do in cover 2, cover 3, they're blitzing, those decisions, those quick decisions, those, I mean, those translate. Like if he can make them against second stringers and third stringers, he can make those same decisions against, when they play the Seahawks and the first stringers are out. So like we're seeing Bo Nix. I think what I'm trying to say is like what we're seeing from Bo Nix is going to translate when the starters do come out for the opposing teams. And that's what's exciting the most is like when Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott had great preseasons, you knew that they were going to end up starting because they were doing too good in the preseason. Think about this. If Denver had, let's say, Russell Wilson on the team this year, there would actually be a legitimate debate to start Bo Nix over whoever the franchise quarterback is. Remember, they paid, I think, what was his name? The Seahawks paid, I think it was Matt. Was it Matt Moore? They paid a quarterback like $70 million. And then Russell Wilson did so good in the preseason that they just said, fuck it. We're going to go with Russell Wilson. So, I mean, the Cowboys had Tony Romo and Dak Prescott did really good in the preseason and just took the job. I think that Bo Nix is doing so good that even if Denver was in one of these situations, Bo Nix, you can make an argument that he should be the starter because he does look that much better than everybody else on the field. And that's what you want to see when he's playing second and third stringers. You want to see that there's a talent deficit and it seems very easy for him. And it does. Like watching Bo Nix, Sean said it was like watching a golfer. It's relaxing. Nobody really knew what that meant. We all get it now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the handful of snaps that he's been a part of this preseason, I'm getting flashes of so many other quarterbacks that we've tried to install since Manning left, and he's like the best of everybody. When you look at Paxton Lynch, mentally he couldn't put it together. He couldn't or didn't want to learn the playbook. I've heard a couple different things, but nobody could dispute his athleticism. It's part of the reason why he was so successful at Memphis. Is that he's running a no playbook. It's just no huddle, let's go. It's what he can come up with on the fly. It's whatever works. But his athleticism was what allowed him to be great at that level. I wouldn't say that Bo Nix is, the most athletically gifted quarterback ever, but I'm getting flashes of that kind of athleticism. When we look at the calm and the comfortability factor that Trevor Siemian had, that everybody always talked about, for a guy who's been a backup or third stringer his whole career, and now he is QB1 on the Broncos, and, look at what he can do. He's not getting rattled. We're seeing these very same traits in a Bo Nix. I look at, again, not quite the level as a Peyton Manning, but the ability to look at the field, read it, and make the right decisions. He's learning football again, but at an NFL level. Look at what he did prior in college when he was at Auburn. I know he gets a lot of flack for a lot of stuff, but honestly, I've seen a lot of Auburn fans come on the horn and be like, listen, this guy, if you look at it, as soon as that ball was snapped, he was running for his life. We didn't have a line. It was everything he could to extend the play, because if he didn't, he was going to take a loss. Like, it was just, that's how it was. That's why he left for Oregon, where they had a better line. They had a better team. They had an actual playbook, and look at what he accomplished there. And then everybody wants to hold against him. Oh, well, you left the SEC. You weren't in the strongest conference of football. So we're just going to take everything you did with a grain of salt, because you were going against softer teams, worse defenses than what you faced at SEC. SEC was too hard for you. You're not as good.
So did Justin Herbert,
And I was a huge fan of Herbert when he came out, and he was getting the same thing. I'm a big believer in the eye test. I really am. And that's why when everybody who was coming into this draft, it was no secret Russell Wilson was going to be leaving. I was very confident we were going to draft in the first round a quarterback. And the only thing I wasn't sure of is whether or not we were going to trade up for one. but
Yeah.
I was pretty confident that we were going to take one. So, okay, what do we do? And when I looked at all the film that I did from everybody, I didn't understand the hype behind Drake May then, and I'm almost proven right today because it almost seems like the Patriots are like, ugh, we probably shouldn't have done this. You know, when you look at Penix, you know, like he did great, but he's got an injury history. Can he keep up and sustain a career at the NFL level? You know, question marks there. I looked it up today. I totally forgot that Spencer Rattler was drafted.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that guy.
Start.
And now he's maybe competing with Derek Carr for the starting gig, and he's not having a great preseason. So that's kind of concerning if I'm a Saints fan. You know, I mean, when we look at Jaden Daniels, he's doing pretty well. He was the other quarterback that I liked, but the only two issues I had with him was one, he's a little bit smaller in frame, and because of the style of quarterback that he plays, I'm worried that he may or may not be able to sustain multiple hits, you know, behind a line that hopefully continues to get better. But it's the NFL. Guys are getting paid to hurt you, and they're getting paid a lot of money to do it versus college where they're not even as big, they're not as old, they're not as experienced. So hopefully he can keep it together and have a better time versus RG3 who went to Washington. But then we look at Caleb Williams and, you know, all the hype around him. I think he's overhyped. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but he thrives in chaos. What happens when he has to stick to the playbook and he doesn't make the right choices because he's used to just rolling out and then just trying to make a play and play some hero ball? I think the only other guy in this draft, that came close was J.J. McCarthy, because he was doing a lot of the same things that Bo Nix was doing. Can you just do what needs to be done on the field? Can you be that field general? Can you run the playbook? Can you make the right decision when you need to? They didn't need him to throw it 50 yards down the field, but I guarantee you he can if he needs to, you know, and Bo Nix is in a very similar position. And when you look at the numbers of all those quarterbacks, I'm very happy with our choice. I'm very happy with our selection. And he was the one quarterback that I wanted out of them all. And if I couldn't have him, I wanted J.J. McCarthy. So I feel very comfortable with who we have and what we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I like, my honest opinion is Jaden Daniels was my favorite. Then I knew Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is going to be good and probably great. And yeah, there's a lot of hype. But just watching the preseason games I've seen from him, it's very similar to Bo Nix. It's like the eyeball test that you mentioned. Like, yeah, all that stuff that they said about him, we saw it right away. And it was like, okay, this guy's going to be good. But I didn't really consider that an option because I knew the Bears were going to draft him. So it's like, whatever. So Jaden Daniels, it's like, I didn't think we were moving up to 2. J.J. McCarthy was somebody that, as I, read and watched and listened to Jim Harbaugh talk, I started to like him a lot. And part of that was because Sean Payton was, putting out smoke screens that they were really interested in J.J. McCarthy. So, of course, as a Broncos fan, I'm like, on my own, I liked him too, but that just added fuel to the fire. And then when they drafted Bo Nix, initially I was like, man, you know what the problem was? I did too many mock drafts that told me that he would be available in the second round. And it was only like 4 hours later I came to my senses, and I was like, dude, I felt so stupid. I was like, first off, if you got a franchise quarterback on the board, you can never overdraft him. Like, there are people on X, like, they're just going on about how Bo Nix was, he's going to be a bust. He shouldn't have been drafted. And this is what I've been saying. Name me one franchise quarterback that was overdrafted. Name me one guy that you're like, that is a bona fide franchise quarterback that you would say today it was a reach. If you have a franchise quarterback and a good head coach, you have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Like, that's the league that we live in. So, no, yeah. Bo Nix wasn't a reach. It was just that Sean Payton, the internal process that the Denver Broncos had was different than the national process that took place. That doesn't mean, and this is how much power the media has to influence people, was that when Bo Nix was drafted, that was like a gut reaction, but it's because of the stories that we were fed, the previous months. But then I heard Sean talk about the draft pick, and I felt like I'm all in on Bo Nix. Like, if that's how Sean feels about him, because I just needed him to say that he didn't draft him because he was the last one available. I needed Sean to say this was my guy all along. And once he said that, I was all in, because I do still think Sean Payton's one of the best, if not the best, offensive mind in the league right now, with Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan and maybe Mike McDaniel's getting up there. But I just, Sean Payton's got the Super Bowl ring. I mean, he's I think probably, the people would say Andy Reid, but second best offensive mind in the league. And, after last year, there's been people saying Sean Payton's a washed up old coach. Well, no, he's not, for one. He took Russell Wilson from a 32nd ranked quarterback to 15, and he did it with not even being able to implement his own philosophy. And like, what good is, having a coach that has 200 checks if your quarterback can't do any of them? I mean, he was out there with two hands tied behind his back trying to make something, and we were still playing for the playoffs in December. So I don't believe that that's what happened, but I think after Pete Carroll and Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick all got fired, it was like Sean Payton was getting grouped in with these older coaches that, this era is ending now, and we're putting Sean Payton in that group because Denver didn't do anything last year. And it's like, he is bringing, like you said in the beginning, there's a whole new energy. And Sean has alluded to that new energy, and he said part of it is the young rookie class that is here. And then Cortland Sutton said part of it is year 2 in Sean's system. Like, there's no more like setting the culture. The culture is here, and now he's able to kind of take the coaching to the next level. He's not setting a culture. The culture's set. So the Broncos are at 5.5 wins. Like, I think that is absolutely ludicrous. Sean Payton has never lost or has never won fewer than 7 games in his whole career. I saw the 5.5, and I saw Bo Nix play, and I went and checked on the 5.5, and the spread was still 5.5. So I put $200 down. I was like, you know what? If that's what they think, that's easy money. 200 to win 400. Denver will not lose that many football games. Like, you're telling me that they can't win 6 games this year with Bo Nix? I think that's crazy. What do you think of the 5.5 win total for the Broncos?
I personally love it. I think that it is fantastic, quote unquote, bulletin board or billboard material, or like whatever it gets dubbed. Like, if I'm Sean Payton and I walk into the locker room, if I've got all my coaching staff and all my players, and I'm like, yeah, they don't think we can win more than 6 games. That's what they think. They think that they can make money off of us because we can't even win 6 games. In a vacuum, if those 6 games are played against our division rivals, sure, Vegas might have a point. But it's not just our division rivals. We have the entire rest of the schedule. And we have some games on there that are absolutely winnable. I don't see a scenario where, if we even had Jarrett Stidham as our QB1, that we lose that many games. There's no way.
Yeah.
I can't see it. I mean, knock on wood, hope it doesn't happen. But I mean, the injury bug can come around at any time to any player. That can be a significant blow. Absolutely. But with the roster, the way it's being assembled, again, Sean Payton, like you said, we are installing, this set offense. Like what it was last year, we're refining it a little bit more this year. But one of the best things about it is that while we're still dealing with the Russell Wilson fallout financially, even with that, look at our roster. Look at how well we are performing. Again, granted, yes, it's preseason. But much like you said earlier, it's all about the timing. It's all about making the right decisions. It's reinforcing that. It's, repetition of, if they do this, you do that. You go left, you try and force them to go right. Like it is all about that kind of philosophy. And then on top of all that, you couple that with, oh, and by the way, we don't have to worry about Russell Wilson being behind center, either trying to play hero ball, trying to roll out when he doesn't need to, can't read, the middle of the fields, not making the short throws, completely eliminating any kind of short yardage gains that we can get. We have a new quarterback that we're going to have rolling into this year, regardless of who it is. We are going to have Sean Payton-led offense 2 years in a row, where the rest of the returning cast from last season has a pretty good idea, if not almost, I would say probably like 90-ish% idea of what this season's offense was going to look like. We've got Vance Joseph, who hopefully was able to install some of the guys that he wants because he's trying to run his defense a certain way. I mean, I haven't finished all of the Packers game, but the fact that we held them to 2 points and that was just a safety, granted it's preseason, didn't matter if it was first, second, or third string, our guys are making the right plays. That is on coaching. That is on understanding the playbook. That is knowing what decisions to make in the moment and how to read the offense or defense respectively. I'm ecstatic. I'm over the moon, and I cannot wait for the season to begin, but there is no way that we lose 10 plus games.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Well, Javonte comes back another year from his injury, so like hopefully in my opinion, he's going to be better than he was last year. I mean, this is the way it goes when you have that kind of an injury. It's like he either is never going to be the same or he's going to bounce back this year. Those are the only two options. And like you look at Saquon Barkley, his second year back from his ACL, like it takes some time. And he honestly, he came back super fast, 9 months after what was everyone was saying a career ending where you tear all three of those ligaments in the knee. Javonte is going to be special. Jaleel McLaughlin all offseason, Sean Payton has been saying he's the first in, last one to leave. He wants to work to get better, and pass protection is something that he's been working on all offseason. I expect Jaleel McLaughlin to be better. Tim Patrick's coming back. He scored his first touchdown in the preseason game just now. By the way, Bo Nix, another thing I love is how he can throw kind of off balance. You see these type of throws from Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not just grouping them. It's just that quick decision and then turn the body in a weird way and throw a very accurate pass. Like that's the kind of stuff that everybody loves to see, no matter if it's preseason or not. But anyway, you got Tim Patrick scoring that touchdown. I think he's going to, add value to this team right away. Marvin Mims is going to be playing a bigger role. Greg Dulcich is looking to get a bigger role. And I think Lucas Krull is going to be kind of like an X factor this year, like that guy that just kind of comes out of nowhere and plays a bigger role, maybe 700 receiving yards. I love this team offensively. But the thing is it's always been that it kind of starts with the quarterback. What good are all these weapons? I mean, Courtland Sutton has constantly proven that he is nearly a top 10 wide receiver in the league, if not a top 10 receiver in the league. And he's going on his 9th quarterback. Like, it's very difficult to stay relevant when you go through 9 quarterbacks. And like Terry McLaurin gets credit for this exact kind of thing. But like, I don't hear people crown Courtland Sutton, even though he has that same badge of honor that somebody like Terry McLaurin has. And Bo Nix is going to finally be able to get these guys the football. The middle of the field is open again. I like the draft pick of Audric Estime. He hasn't looked too good in the preseason, in my opinion, but I expect Jaleel McLaughlin to be a little bit better. I think the defense is going to be, look, they gave up 70 points. I was at that Dolphins game. They gave up 70 points. And the week before that, they gave up, I think, 35 to the Commanders with Sam Howell. If you take those 2 games away, the Broncos had a top 10 defense last year. If you just remove those 2 games. Unfortunately, you can't do that, so Denver's on the very bottom. But my point is I feel like those dark days are behind us, and I expect Denver to, maybe they won't be a top 10, but they'll be a top 15 defense this year. So if you have a top 15 and a top 15 offense and defense, I'm sorry, but that's not a 5-win team. It's not. And for some reason, the Raiders, who just announced their starting quarterback is going to be Gardner Minshew, who I like Gardner Minshew, but let's be real. Like, why are the Raiders still favored to have more wins than the Broncos at this point in the season? I really don't get it. Like, I try to take off my Broncos hat and say, why? What is there about the Raiders that makes you feel more confident in them than the Broncos this year? It's not Gardner Minshew. They lost Josh Jacobs. Like, I don't see it. I have no idea what we're missing.
I I think the only thing that makes any kind of sense really is the fact that, realistically speaking, taking off the Broncos homerism and Nash Prod, taking away, any of those like rose tinted glasses, the Broncos have not been offensively relevant since our 2015 Super Bowl run. And it all stems from the fact that we couldn't keep a head coach. We couldn't find our quarterback. We were going through issues with our ownership, and whether it was Elway that was in charge, or was it actually the Bolin Trust, or was it some weird fusion of the two? What about the Bolin siblings? Where do they fit in? And there was no clear direction. It felt like from the very top. And if there's no clear direction, then all you're doing this is for business decisions. You're not in it to win games. You're not in it for titles. You're not in it for championships. You are in this for money. I'm a firm believer. I love Pat Bolin. It was a travesty that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame after Jerry Jones. He should have been in before. I take nothing away from Jerry Jones, and Cowboys fans do not hate me. Jerry Jones is a very smart businessman. He's done fantastic things to grow the Cowboys brand. But if you look at where the Broncos were under the Bolin ownership, under Pat Bolin's time as an owner, we've been to more division title games. We'd been to more AFC championship games, and we'd been to more Super Bowls. Since Jerry Jones has been an owner, how many Super Bowls have the Cowboys won? Oh, way back in the 90s with the triplets, back when they still had the head coach that they fired. I can't remember his name. Bill
Parcells?
No, I was thinking Wade, but it wasn't Wade Wilson. It was
you're thinking of Jason Garrett.
No, like as soon as they won the Super Bowl, and then Jerry Jones fired him, and they never won a Super Bowl again.
Oh, gosh,
I can't remember his name. But that guy, that was the last time, and that was like what, 94-ish, somewhere around there.
95. There
you go.
95, and let's see, Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, 95 was their last Super Bowl win. Let me see if I can just Cowboys. I'll find it real quick.
So, I mean, since 95, when the Cowboys last won the Super Bowl, the Broncos had done a repeat. We'd been to a third Super Bowl in 2015, not to mention the amount of division and championship games that we've been to that the Cowboys have not. Yet Jerry Jones was still inducted before Pat Bolin because, as an owner, he did good owner things.
Barry Switzer.
Was it Switzer? There you go. When we had somebody like that as the owner, when there was a clear-cut, definitive vision for the team, and it was win games, win championships, that's what happened. Even if we didn't go to the Super Bowl, the Broncos were competitive year in and year out.
Mm-hmm. They were the current 49ers.
And then, flash forward to 2015. Okay, we win the Super Bowl. How are we gonna get back there? And we're on the head coaching carousel. We're on the quarterback carousel. We have the issues with the ownership and who is actually in charge and what direction do we take the team and what do we do? I think because of that long, weird limbo time frame, as a Broncos fan or anybody in the front office, Vegas has to look at that and be like, well, realistically speaking, the Raiders have been more up and coming than the Broncos have. Granted, It's not like they've done anything really either, but they at least haven't been mired in those issues. They've had a consistent owner that whole time. Granted, their head coach and quarterback has been almost as bad as ours, but it hasn't been as frequent. They've been a little bit more stable with that. I think they
Sean
gave
Payton's kind of the buck stops with him.
and he's a proven coach. That this isn't somebody a first time round. This isn't somebody on their second go around. Like, what if they have a new team and a new front office to work with and just a fresh set of faces to really build their culture. No, this is a guy who was very successful, and he's bringing that same mentality to a team that's needed it. We got rid of a quarterback who was displaying diva-like behavior that Sean Payton did not want to put up with at all. So when you're able to establish from the ownership down, this is the offense I want to run. This is the kind of quarterback that I want. This is the kind of defense that we need to have. We are going to win games because this is how we're going to do it. This is our way forward. If you have that vision, things are going to fall in place. And for whatever reason, Vegas hasn't picked up on that. But I honestly, the only thing I can think of is just because we haven't been relevant in almost 10 years, and the Raiders have had more success. They moved to a new city. They got a new stadium. They've hosted a Super Bowl there since then. They've got a little bit more notoriety within the media. So I think in Vegas's eyes, they're a bit of a sexier pick to win games, even though when you look at it realistically speaking, you've got a first-time head coach in Coach Pierce. You've got Gardner Minshew, who's finally earned a QB1 bottle. I think he should have been QB1 in Jacksonville, but that was going to ruin their chances to go get Trevor Lawrence, who may or may not have performed up to his name at this point. But
I get what you're saying. I mean, but he was the reason the Jags had the first overall pick. Like, he started that whole year. But
and they ruined it for him. They specifically pulled him. I think it was 8-9 games into the season or something. Like, he didn't play the full season as QB1. They yanked him towards the end.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember it that way. But I mean, regardless, like, Trevor Lawrence was, a Caleb Williams type recruit.
Exactly right. He was the big name. It was, tank for Trevor, and that was the plan for the Jags. And Gardner Minshew was ruining it. That's why they had to pull him, and they wound up trading him because they're like, yeah, we're getting Trevor. Bye.
Yeah.
So, and then the same thing, not to the same extent, but very similar with the Colts and Anthony Richardson. It's like, yeah, sorry, you're not going to get the starting gig. He's our guy. So I'm happy for him. I hope it works out. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know who the Raiders have on their roster that is so scary to me that it makes me look at those games and go, oof, I'm not excited for that. I don't look forward to those games. I do look forward to those games. And I'm a firm believer that we'll at least split those games. If not, we could potentially wind up sweeping them for the first time in what seems like a decade plus.
Yeah, I would, if you made me predict that, I would say we sweep them this year. Of course, it's a divisional rivalry and they've had our number, so splitting the series is probably the safest, but I feel different about this team, seeing how Bo Nix is in sync with Sean Payton. I think that's going to translate into the season, and it would be different if Bo Nix went out there and he looked pretty good, but he doesn't, man. He looks great. I mean, he is clearly, of any quarterback that was drafted, he's playing the best football throughout the preseason, and he had the most to gain by playing good. I mean, Caleb Williams wasn't in a QB competition. Jaden Daniels, he was named the starter yesterday, but that was always going to be the case. Marcus Mariota's not going to come in. So the Broncos were the only team that drafted a quarterback that you really didn't know if he was going to start week one. I mean, you felt like he was, but now that we've seen him play, it's almost a for sure thing. So I want to kind of wrap it up with this question. And if you're interested, I'd love to have you back on before week one too, so we can
absolutely
talk about the Seahawks game. But Sean Payton has not named Bo Nix the starting quarterback yet. And there's two reasons that I know are a factor in that. One of them, he said on an interview with Kay Adams, he said, if I'm, if the cornerback position is still battling it out, I don't think it's fair to say, the quarterback that the media has reported that I'm in love with, we're ready to make a decision there, but not with you. So Sean Payton it's clear if you can read between the lines here. He's going out of his way to make sure his team knows that he's not playing favoritism to Bo Nix because he was his guy. And that is, I honestly think that's the biggest. I mean, that's like 9 out of 10 reason that he hasn't done it yet, in my opinion. The other thing is just kind of maintaining control of the building. Like, the media is not going to get this out of me. I will tell you when I'm ready. And the fact that you guys keep on asking doesn't mean that I'm going to give you the answer. I'm going to give it when you don't expect it. So I think those are the main 2 reasons. But is there anything I'm missing? I mean, why hasn't Sean, in your opinion, just come out and say after because he pulled Bo Nix after 2 series. He went down, threw a touchdown pass, got called back, kicked field goal, came back on the field, touchdown drive, and he pulled him out of the game. And in my opinion, he said, I don't need to see any more. And I thought from that moment, we might not see Bo Nix until Seattle. But even so, Sean has not named Bo Nix the starting quarterback. So what gives?
You know what? I think I may actually have an answer for you. I think, one, it's Sean Payton being Sean Payton. I mean, when you look at it, I think it was like right before the first preseason game came out, he'd listed all the rookies as third string, right? And the reason wound up being, it was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's a preseason. It's the first preseason game at that. Like, I don't want to devote any more attention to that than I need to, because ultimately it doesn't matter, right? I'm going to go over the cuts. I'm going to go over the personnel decisions. We're going to make the choices that we do and trim this roster to the final 53, and that's what it's going to be. Why waste more time on a preseason roster and depth chart that ultimately no one's going to care about come opening week? So, I think, one, it's just Sean Payton like, I don't need to worry about this. It's not a big deal. And I think, 2, I'm a firm believer that because this is very much Sean Payton's team now than it was last year. He's very much in control. He is driving. He's got things in motion. He's got a direction, and everybody's along for the ride. I think everybody, the front office, coaching staff, the players, they all know who QB1 is. And I think one of the things that Sean Payton is doing is not giving that information to the media for it to get blasted everywhere, because he's also trying to help kind of shield Bo Nix a little bit from the attention that's going to garner prematurely. Don't worry about all that. Focus on these preseason games. Keep learning the playbook. Keep going over the film. Let's make sure. We're seeing the connection between him and Tim Patrick, him and Cortland Sutton, him in the short throws with the running back core. The first preseason game where Kroll fumbles it and then Nix targets him 3 more times in a row. So, like, hey, man, pull your head. Like, it's fine. It's okay. We all make mistakes. Get back in the game. You got this. Like, that's what Sean Payton wants him to look at. That's what he wants him to focus his attention on. Don't get caught up in all these interviews that you're going to have to give, because you will. But instead, right now, just focus on learning the playbook, focus on growing with your team, and let's tackle this together. But, like, you're the guy. It's okay. Yeah. And I think that if you're keeping that in-house, Sean Payton can be that shield for the whole team, regardless of, we've got a center battle. We've got a cornerback 2 battle. We've got maybe some decisions to make for the running back core. There's a lot of other positional groups that are in a battle, but obviously all eyes are on the quarterback. So it's not even just Bo Nix. It's the whole team. So let's just watch Sean Payton give the media the Heisman while they can just focus on football. And I think ultimately that's really where we're at, because then it also gives Sean Payton that level of control. And he doesn't have to worry about things getting too big for the rookies. Whether, that's, you've got to do this interview now. You've been named QB1. Oh, what if that puts you on the wrong path and you get a bit of a diva mentality before the end of the season? No, right. I'm not going to let that happen. We're going to get through this together. we're going to sit down, we're going to go over things, you're going to listen to me, and we're going to do this as a team. But I got your back if you got mine. And it levels the playing field, and it brings the rookies into the team and into the spotlight in a much more humble and easier digestible manner than, say, oh yeah, end of the second preseason game, QB1, here we go.
Yeah. And if it's not broke, don't fix it too. I mean, things are going really well right now, and I'm not even talking about his play style. What I'm saying is, if you look at Bo Nix's personality, and I would urge you guys, if you're watching this later, go just look up on YouTube Bo Nix's last game as an Oregon Duck, when he played Liberty in a bowl game, and unlike a lot of quarterbacks, he decided to play in the game. And look at his press conference, or not his press conference. He's interviewed on the field before he walks off, his last interview on the field as a Duck. And just listen to what he says, how he talks about his team, how he talks about, his faith, all of that stuff. And you kind of get an idea of who Bo Nix is. I mean, Kay Adams would love nothing more than to interview Bo Nix. And what happened? Sean Payton gets interviewed. Patrick Surtain and Cortland Sutton get interviewed. Why no Bo Nix? I'll tell you why. Bo Nix would not do an interview right now. He doesn't think it's appropriate to be doing interviews. He hasn't earned the job yet. They asked him about it in his press conference after the Packers game. They said, do you feel like you've done enough to earn the starting quarterback job? And he said, that's not for me to decide. A man of many words on every question ended it just like that. And just was like, next question. Like, it's not for me to decide. So I'm kind of learning who Bo Nix is. And Bo Nix is the kind of guy that is going to say and do all the right things. He's a pro's pro. He is a professional in the way he carries himself. So I think Sean's thinking to himself, why not just keep this attitude because what he's got right now is what I want. And you make a great point. Like, don't let it get to his head. Don't announce something big, because then there's going to be people reaching out for interviews. Like, let's just keep this quietly our thing, you and me, and we'll just turn the world off. I love that explanation of it. And it's starting to become more clear to me over the last couple of weeks, like who Bo Nix is, the person, not just Bo Nix, the football player.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the qualities or one of the features that Sean Payton was looking for during this draft was, okay, yeah, with our pick, we're a little bit lower down in the first than we'd want to be, but who can we get? And when you look at the backgrounds of all these players, when you're looking at their personalities, I was actually watching Hard Knocks for the first time a few weeks ago when my in-laws were in town, and just getting to see in depth, like the overall draft process that teams go through. It's very in depth, and they do multiple interviews, and it's not just, okay, let me ramble off all these things from the playbook. All right, now spit it back to me. You've had 2 seconds to remember it and ingest it. It's also like, who are you as a person? What's your family life like? How many friends do you have? How close are they? Let's go back and look at your press conferences in college, and what kind of player were you there? What kind of person were you in the media spotlight? And when you have somebody who's coachable in Bo Nix, who's willing to learn, very smart. I think they said on the preseason game that like he learned the whole playbook practically overnight, and Sean Payton didn't believe it and was like, "Yeah, turn out your backpack. I know you've got to have something in there. There's got to be something." And
he said that he was looking for his vices. He was like, I was thinking a can of chewing tobacco, like something. He said all there was a lacrosse ball for his back and playbooks.
I mean, when that's who you are as a person, and then you're still doing this on the field, after 15 throws, he'd be my guy too. Yeah.
And some of the Broncos bets that I put in, over 5.5 wins, 200 wins, 400. Sean Payton, because you got to think, if one goes right, a lot of these go right. Sean Payton, Coach of the Year. If he does turn this Broncos team around, Bo Nix has a great season. There's going to be a lot of Broncos awards given out. I think Sean Payton, winning Coach of the Year, $5, $135 payout. I like the odd risk reward there. Yeah. Sam Darnold, Comeback Player of the Year. Keep your eye on that with Kevin O'Connell and Yeah, you like that one.
Yeah,
And that,
I think he's got a good chance because of McCarthy unfortunately getting hurt.
yeah, unfortunate, but I know at the time I placed this bet, the odds were plus 3,000. The next morning they said it was season ending. I already felt that it was season ending, but the odds have adjusted to plus like 1,000 now, so I wouldn't go that way. But the Broncos ones, I definitely love. Bo Nix as the AP NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. $5 wins you 80, and then a 3-leg parlay for division winners: Broncos, Rams, and Packers wins $1,354. That's a $5 bet. So I think the Rams and Packers definitely could win it. The Broncos, of course, is the big oddball here, but why not? You know, it's $5.
Yeah,
Why not? I mean,
right.
what if the Broncos are the Texans of last year? Just what
Yeah,
if?
yeah. I think that, with the way that our division is going, it seems like LA is basically where we were last year. They've got a proven head coach, but this is his first year in the system that he's now going to try and install. The difference being that you've got Justin Herbert, whereas we didn't have a quarterback. We had a Russell Wilson who's playing himself out of the Hall of Fame conversation with every snap. So they've got a bit of a different setup, but again, how good can the Chargers be? We'll find out. They're a little bit of a question mark. I feel confident that we are better than the Raiders. And do we have enough? Has the team come together and gelled enough? And will they come together enough towards the end of the season when we play the Chiefs twice, I think in 6 weeks to close out the
Yeah.
season? So
Yeah.
it's like those. I mean, and who's to say that even with that last game of the season, Kansas City's probably going to have a lock in the playoffs. If they don't play their starters, that gives us better odds of winning that game, which means if we could walk away with the season of another Chiefs win and 6 wins total overall to prove everybody else wrong in Vegas about the 5.5, I would be ecstatic.
I would too, and would love to have you back on, before that Seahawks game, so we can continue to talk ball. But as always, it's a pleasure having you on. Thanks for your time and for doing this.
Of course. Thanks for having me back.
All right, I'll see you soon, Travis.
All right. Sounds good.